Well, the Financial Services Authority was set up in the year 2000 by Gordon Brown as the Chancellor, replaced a whole myriad of other regulators which govern different parts of the City of London. So it brought it all together under the Financial Services Authority through the Financial Services and Markets Act. And Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, and indeed the previous Tory governments always trumpeted the fact that the City of London was the place to do business, and deliberately ensured that light touch regulation enabled banks to come into the City of London and be able to trade. The problem with light touch regulation is that it doesn't regulate banking behaviour from taking excessive risk, and this is what has happened. Whereas as far as the retail banks are concerned, which you see in your high street and every town and city in the United Kingdom, the retail banks were also poorly regulated. A few years ago, we had the mis-selling of precipice bonds. Barclays were found to be mis-selling certain investment bonds, as were Lloyds. Light touch regulation in the United Kingdom has been a disaster. The cost of bailing out the banks because of the banking crisis is estimated at the moment to be 290 billion. The tax revenues from the year 2004/5 to 2009/10 were 203 billion. So it's been a hugely costly exercise in this light touch regulation. The other thing to consider about the idea of light touch regulation is that the Financial Services Authority doesn't act to prevent mis-selling. It always seems to catch up after the event, which is ridiculous. What particularly encouraged me about using this website as a public interest website was that earlier this year, the High Court supported the Financial Services Authority, which is the banking regulator, that the banks did indeed fail the public in the promotion of the payment protection insurance contracts. The banks and the insurance companies have been promoting this contract for the whole of the last decade. And it was only in 2005 that the Financial Services Authority started regulating this type of contract. So it took the Financial Services Authority 6 years to finally stop the promotion of this flawed contract. What encouraged me was the fact that the Financial Services Authority felt they had the confidence, backed by the court, to stop the banks from promoting this product. Now, with regards to Lloyds, which is United Kingdom's largest retail bank, they have more complaints than any other company. They have set aside £3.5 to £4 billion to cover the costs of this. What I'm being concerned about is the fact that the leadership of Lloyds were continuing to promote this contract through the retail bank, which is LloydsTSB, knowing full well that the complaints were piling up and the regulators had real issues with the promotion of this contract. They carried on promoting this contract, carrying on banking their bonuses. The effect of deregulation on British banks has been catastrophic. Not only do we have light touch regulation through the Financial Services Authority, we also have the fact that these large banks like Lloyds and Barclays, HSBC, are so big that they are too big to fail, which means we, the taxpayer, underwrite their risk. So this is why these banks were encouraged to take these excessive risks, because they knew that if these gambles didn't pay off, we, the taxpayer, would be there to pick them up, and that's exactly what happened. What people should know about lobbyists is that these are individuals who are employed by a sector, for example, the British Banking Association, the BBA. So if there is legislation going through the House of Commons and the banking industry wants to have an influence on the shape of that legislation, then the lobbyists would ask to see the ministers and say, it is in our interest that this legislation does such and such, and they try and influence the ministers in the way that legislation is formed. The lobbying industry is very opaque in the United Kingdom. Apparently, more than 50% of the House of Lords pass holders, you have a pass to get in, are lobbyists. There is a voluntary register of lobbyists in the Houses of Parliament, both for the House of Commons and the House of Lords. But beyond that, there is no system of registering who these lobbyists are. The Bureau of Investigative Journalism, which is a United Kingdom organisation, reported in May this year, 2011, that the Tory party now gets over 50% of its donations from city-based institutions. 30 years ago, the majority of the Tory party donations came from the shires around England, from local fundraising events like fetes and tea parties and bridge drives. That's all gone. It's now big corporate donations from lobbying interests. This has a distorting effect on our democracy. It is deeply worrying that the Tory party is now dependent for more than half its income from the City of London.